Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast, The Engineer Whisperer. And today we're going to talk about transition. And my guest today is Marco. Marco, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andrea. Nice to be here.
So, as we start, give us a little bit of background about you. Where are you from? Where are you calling from?
I'm based in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And from background, I'm a chemical engineer, 59 years of age, married with Tessa, and I have two children, Tim and Anna.
Well, welcome to today's podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. And let's jump right in. The question that I want us to start with is, what was the most challenging transition in your life so far?
Well, basically, it has been a challenge which has been with me quite some years, in my younger years, where I didn't feel well in my skin. And I found that relationships were under pressure, and I also felt there was more in me than I could show to the world. And that led to a whole cascade of problems, which in the end urged me to find a solution, basically.
So tell us more. How did you find that solution? What was the pivotal moment that got you to look for the solution?
Well, the pivotal moment I was invited or forced to look for a solution was when I was at the end of my studies in 1989. And that was a moment where all engineers wanted to be working at Shell, the oil company. And at that moment in time, they offered international traineeships, and both my girlfriend and myself applied. And we both got a very short letter. And in my case, it said, well, thank you very much for your interest, but we don't see enough points of interest to invite you for an interview. And my girlfriend also got a short letter with an invitation. And at the end of the day, she was selected for a traineeship in Australia. And that was a big setback for me because I thought, well, gee, am I good enough for you in a relationship? And am I good enough as a person? So that put a lot of pressure on the relationship at that moment in time. But of course, she left to Australia, and so we had decided, well, we're not going to go for a traineeship together, but after she's finished, we'll go and travel together in Asia. And I still remember vividly that it was in August 1989. I was sitting in the room in my parents' house. It was a sunny day, such a quiet summer day, and I was sitting next to the phone. And when the phone rang, it was Tessa, my girlfriend. And the aim of the call was to determine how we were going to set up our travel together. But it made a pivotal turn because the first thing she said when I answered is, well, I'm very sorry, but I'm breaking up. So I lost my relationship. And of course, at that moment in time, she also said, well, I'm not going to travel together with you. And I think that was the lowest point I can remember in my life, because at that moment in time, I didn't have a traineeship. I lost my girlfriend, and I also lost a partner to travel with together. So my whole world was shaking basically. And in the end, I decided to travel on my own. And that during that trip, I already started investigating, well, what can I do to become the better version of myself?
Wow. Wow. That takes so much courage to say, I'm still going to go do that journey. And now I'm going to do it kind of for myself, with myself, and then give myself that time to find myself. Wow, I'm totally inspired. Tell us more. What happened on the journey? What happened next?
Yeah, well, maybe one thing back to the phone call, because when she said, well, this is it, we're going to finish, there were two things which I thought, amazingly enough. First of all, I thought, well, this is only logic. I mean, I'm an engineer by training. It's only logic that this is happening because there was a lot of tension in the relationship. And the second thing, not so logic, I also thought one way or another, it it will work out properly between us. There was no reason because my girlfriend was also an engineer, so very strict. So once she had decided this is it, well, I could be pretty sure that that was it. So there was no reason to have any idea or dreams that things would become better. Anyway, I went on my own, and the only thing I bought was a single ticket to Mumbai in India, and I also really wanted to go to Bangladesh because you hear all these horror stories about Bangladesh, and I thought, well, I really want to go there and see what it's really like. And I had already done some traveling before because with a group of students, we organized a study tour to China. So we've been there for 7 weeks, and I knew what it was like to travel in an Asian country. But it makes a big difference whether you're traveling in a group or whether you arrive at Mumbai airport at 6 a.m. in the morning
Yes.
with the Indian smells, people living in cardboard boxes. And I thought, by God, what have I done? So I teamed up with a couple of British people, and they went to Goa in the afternoon by train. So I joined them in the train to Goa, and on the train we met a guy who was working on a big ship and who lived in Goa. So he invited us to stay at his home, which we accepted, but it would be nice to meet local people. And once we had arrived at his home, we went for dinner at a restaurant on the beach. And I ate fish. And that night I didn't feel very well. So I had to throw up and spent all the night in the toilet. And at the end, I found out that I had dysentery, so also quite a serious disease. And it took me 6 weeks to recover. So it made it really, really hard for me to travel. And somewhere, I think in that period, I heard about Vipassana meditation and about a 10-day retreat in Pune. And I think I was, a bit lost in myself and looking for what will I do. So I went there, and it was an amazing experience. I mean, 1989, nobody was talking about meditation. And I remember when I came back that my mother told me that she was afraid that I would never return because I went into a meditation club or something. And anyway, this was really also very intense because we woke up at 4 in the morning and meditated until 9 in the evening, and you were not allowed to speak. And another funny thing I just remember, because we were not allowed to speak and we only spoke to the teacher once a day, one-on-one, but for the rest you were quiet. And I remember that on the 10th day, you were allowed to speak again. And that felt so awkward to start speaking again. But anyway, you get used to it quite quickly. And I remember vividly leaving the premises, and the moment I walked outside, someone said, "Did you know that the Berlin Wall had fallen?" And I didn't have a clue
Wow.
because we were really, well,
You were
away from
isolated.
isolated, exactly. And I've used meditation over during that period. There was 5 months in Asia, but the moment I returned, I had to join a military service. And that was, of course, immediately the end of my meditation career because meditation was not something done by the boys. Um, and over the years, I've done many things, therapy and coaching and training. And the more I did, the easier it became to become and to be the best version of myself. But what I also noticed is that it was only true as long as things were not under pressure. Because the moment things were under pressure, I just clicked back into my old behavior. And although I rationally knew that there was no reason for it, emotionally, there was no escape. And
Yeah,
somewhere around,
we struggle with that ourselves. So I wanna say that, yeah, what you're bringing up and what you're sharing, I think it's a universal struggle.
yeah, because once you've learned your behavior, it becomes ingrained in your brain, and then it's automated. And
Yes.
that's easy because then you do it automatically, but
Yes.
it's difficult to unlearn and learn something different.
Yes.
And one for a miraculous reason, I was invited for a lecture or workshop where someone was going to talk about measuring brain activity and use that to develop yourself. And I went there, and afterwards I thought two things. First of all, I thought, wow, this sounds too good to be true, because she was telling that it was a very elegant way to develop yourself very fast and in a lasting manner. And given my own experience, I thought, well, lasting, that's impossible, because it's so hard to unlearn and learn new things. So that's the first thing I doubted. And secondly, it also appeared a bit spooky to me, because it meant that people would put sensors on your head, read your brain, and by reading the brain could tell you what needs to be done to develop yourself. So the next day, by then I had become an entrepreneur. I told my colleague, Lisette, I've heard something yesterday, and I think it's the thing for you. Because I thought that she had a couple of things which she could develop herself. And she,
I
of
love I
course,
love how we're sending somebody you're sending somebody else to
yeah,
go through this
exactly. I
spooky
was just
stuff.
too afraid.
Yes, yes.
And of course, she didn't take my advice. So she thought, well, he's nuts, and I'll just keep doing the things I've always done. And then about 2 years later, I just came back into this pattern, not feeling well, feeling pressure on relationships, and also feeling that I couldn't bring to the table what was in me. And thought, yeah, bloody hell, I've done everything I've known so far. I go back to the woman who told this intriguing story about measuring brain
Oh,
activity.
you after 2 years you still
After 2 years,
remembered her?
I went back to her, and I had
Amazing.
difficulty finding her. But anyway, that I managed that, and I jumped in. I thought, well, I've done everything I could so far, and nothing has been successful. So let's give this a try. And it took I don't know, at that moment in time, 2 months or so, I think. And somewhere halfway down the line, it felt like a switch turned in my system. And the thing which was predominantly hindering me was the fact that I can see talents with other people very easily, and I know what they're good at. But the moment I see the talent with you, I immediately realized, oh, gee, Andrea is very well at doing this and that, and I can't do that. So I'm a bit of a loser. And
Oh,
rationally, I had already thought that that was nonsense, because I have an academic degree at a technical university. So that's not something which a lot of people do. But emotionally, it was still profound in my system and hindering me. And in that specific moment, it felt like it just evaporated.
let go. Uh-huh.
Exactly. And where my quote before I started was, "This is too good to be true," my quote afterwards was "I wish that everybody could experience it." And as I just told you, I had another company then with about 15 employees. Majority was based in the Netherlands. No, not the smaller part was based in the Netherlands, and the majority was based around Europe. And at a team meeting, I explained to them what I did, and I also invited them to go through the same process on my cost. I would pay for them. And I explained it to him in a, I think, quite enthusiastic way, because everybody said yes.
So,
And
so
again,
wait, tell us, what would you have said? Like, what was it like, the experience? I mean, you said a little bit that you felt this switch, this letting go. So, what else? What after you left
well,
that session? What?
I remember that I showed slides where the slides before I did this program, my world was pretty dark and gloom. So it was heavy and not very pleasant. And it felt like waking up in a new world, basically, with a lot of possibilities and light and joy, all
And
those kind of things.
and the only thing that you did is that you just went and you let yourself be there, like
Well,
from a.
what the program was about is balancing my brain activities. So some parts were overactive and other parts were not active enough. And in this training, basically you train your brain so that the settings are more aligned and optimized.
Mhm.
And secondly, you learn how to make use of those improved settings in your everyday life.
I see. So it's almost like uh, a practical visual of your brain, as you said, the settings in your brain. You can see it in that program, and then you could adjust. Is that what I'm just to kind of give an understanding of
Well,
who's listening? Like,
yeah,
then through exercises, you could see the results of the change.
yeah,
Uh,
so basically you're permanent in a permanent feedback loop, which shows you whether
okay.
your
Yes.
brain is doing the right thing or not.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what it shows is your two different mindsets as a human being. Because the one mindset is where you are in the world with an open view and open mind,
Yeah, that
in a relaxed,
abundance. Mm-hmm.
exactly, in a relaxed state of mind and with
Yes.
a focused attention.
Mm-hmm.
And with that mindset, you bring the best version of yourself to the table. Because with that mindset, you automatically react in a proactive manner and focus your attention to those things you can really change yourself.
Yes.
And the other mindset is a lot more narrow-minded. And
Mhm.
then you jump into a reactive survival mode.
So you literally saw
You literally
those.
see which mindset it is.
Yeah.
And by being able to see it, you can learn how to explain. Yeah, so shall I just tell it in a few sentences how it works? Is that interesting
Well,
or not? Or later?
mm. Yeah, I don't.
Not?
I I think it's very interesting because again, from an engineer and with an engineering mind, it's receiving, as you said, immediate feedback, immediate data, and
Exactly, yeah.
then immediate possibility to change something, to shift something, and then to see what happens when I change something, when you change something, and then to see the response in your brain activity. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, let's continue with your story. Yes. So you left,
On
you
on my
invited,
personal life, you mean?
yes. So you
Yeah,
left,
okay.
you invited everybody at your company
At
to
my
go
cost, yeah.
through.
So, and it took I think a few months before everybody had gone through the process. And now, um, in a cold uh, night in February in winter, I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, this is it. This is waiting for me to put into the world, to bring into the world. So next day, I told my wife that I was going to start with a new company, and the same thing I told the next morning to my companion Lisette from the previous company, and that's how I jumped in. And then maybe another thing, because before I forget to tell, I told you about the breakup with my girlfriend in 1989. Well, I did everything I had to get her back, and it took me about 3 years. Um, and eventually, well, she surrendered, or sort of. So we came back together, and I married her. And she was invited to participate in an election to be the businesswoman of the year in the Netherlands in 2013. And she won. So she was elected to be the businesswoman of the year in 2013. And I still remember Tessa going up to the stage to take her prize. And the only thing I felt then was love and pride. And that was for me the ultimate proof that I
Yes.
had really profoundly changed the way I perceive the other people and myself in relation to that.
Yes. Oh, I love that you mentioned that, and then this whole full circle, and then
Circle,
yeah,
exactly,
I was
exactly.
wondering at what happened with Tessa, and
Yeah.
then she showed up in the story again, because I this is one of my beliefs that our biggest success in life is that moment when I am enough. That moment
Mm,
that you said that I can be proud and happy and joyful for someone's success,
yeah.
and then that I also can be enough in that moment too. Like I can celebrate someone else. and with no regrets and, the bad feelings about myself. So I
Exactly.
love this. I love that you put that in there. Thank you for remembering. Because I think that's an amazing
Key.
journey that you went through, and yeah, thanks for sharing. I mean, that's why I invited you here, because I think a lot of us can relate.
Hmm.
So, okay. It's again. um so now looking back, um what what was the surprising part of your transition, if
Oh, geez.
anything?
Well, I think another transformation I went through is that before I really could be very negative about other people because I felt that you had to do certain things to make sure that I would be happy. So that also, of course, doesn't work. And my motto of life is now that everybody always acts act as best as they possibly can. So even when you see people struggle, it's just because they don't know how to do it differently in a better way. And I think what you just described on being able to be comfortable and happy with yourself and love yourself the way you are, that's also a process which, well, I've gone through myself, and I see other people going through themselves when they come to my company, because at the end I created this company, as I just mentioned. Um, and I discovered that only not just me, but everybody has a unique view on the world. And with that unique view, you can also contribute something which is unique and which only you can contribute. And I strongly believe that one of our biggest, if not the biggest task we have in life is to discover or rediscover what that contribution could be, and then have the guts to really do it.
Yes, I mean, you waking up one night, and then feeling a strong calling. I think that's the English word, that this
Mm.
is what I want. It's one of those moments when, and I felt it too, when it's I can't explain it. There's no
No,
real logic. It's
no,
it's 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 all just a
not
bunch of
engineer.
yes, just a bunch of feelings, and it's at the right place at the right time, and it's the right feeling. Yeah, I mean, right, according to how I feel, not somebody else. It's not a societal. And and just having that moment, and then, as you said, deciding that, okay, I'm gonna step up. I'm gonna respond to that calling. So
Yeah.
what happened to you and with you as you responded to that calling?
Well, it was the start of another bumpy journey because I started in 2010. It was an economic crisis when I started with this company. And of course, the brain and neuroscience was not really as hot as it is nowadays. So when I talk to people that it's, well, basically as my own initial reaction was, you are able to develop yourself by measuring brain activity and training your brain. People thought, oh my God, that poor guy is nuts, because I left a company which had the turnover of millions. So we were European market leader at that moment in time. So it was not a very logic step to sell that shares and just jump into a wild adventure, basically. And initially, people who came were people like me who had done everything and nothing worked. So, well, this is my final attempt, basically. Or people who were very innovative and thought, well, if this is possible, I'll do it no matter what. Or people who trusted me personally. Um, and you just asked what was the biggest surprise of your transformation. I think that came also later when we really understood what we were doing. I mean, principally everything has changed, has stayed the same from 2010 to now. But the way we look at it and the way we do it has changed and improved dramatically. And one of the pivotal moments I also would like to share is that, because of course we also met through LinkedIn. And another thing I found on LinkedIn around 2014, when I was scrolling through my timeline on a Friday afternoon, was a post by Daniel Goleman.
Yeah.
And he's the author of Emotional Intelligence. And he offered a workshop, The Chemistry of Connection. And I thought, my God, that's for me. I'd like to go there. But when I looked carefully, I saw that it was in New York from Friday evening until Sunday afternoon. And it felt a bit strange to go to New York for just 2 days. But in the course of my life, I've learned that these things they come for a reason. So I jumped into the plane, and I remember vividly that I was standing vis-a-vis to Daniel Goleman, and he explained to me that the amygdala hijack, that is that your stress system takes over the control of your responses, basically, that according to Daniel Goleman, that's the root cause of nearly all personal and interpersonal trouble in the world. Meaning, the moment I am stressed and I respond in a stressed manner to you, there's a big chance that your stress system also thinks
Yes.
something's wrong.
Yes.
And basically what happens is that it scales up or scales down, if you want, from an individual to two, to a team, to a company, to a country, to the global, crisis we
Yes.
see. And the moment he said that, well, I'm not say that I've broke into tears, because that's not something which I do very easily, but it really moved me, because at that moment in time, it hit me, and I realized that what we've developed is a method to do it the other way around. So where stress is a vicious circle going down,
Mm-hmm.
with an open view and open mind is also contagious, but in a positive way. And that's really something which I feel very strongly we need in the world today, because there's a lot of transformations we have to go through, and we can only do that together, and each of us contributing whatever you can to bring your unique contribution.
Yes, believing that we all can contribute to it. I think
Exactly, exactly,
that's that mindset of again, I'm good enough to contribute. I am
exactly.
enough to contribute.
Yeah.
And then if I believe that the person next to me is good enough, then I that belief will be contagious, and then you bring that person in, and then as you said, me, then two, then three, then a group, then so forth.
Yeah, and you
Yes.
also go beyond competition, because the moment if you feel that you have a unique contribution to make,
Yes.
we're not competing, because
Correct.
my contribution is different. And what I also strongly believe is that when you are the best version of yourself, you rise above yourself if you want. And if I do the same, I rise above me, then together we can create something which is rising above that. And I think that's where the magic and the solutions are for the challenging problems we face as mankind.
We all have to rise above ourselves.
Exactly.
It's that part of the willingness, and then the commitment to do that, and to do the work, and to go find how we do that. So yes, well, that's why I invited you here today to share us, eh, how you do it, and then to inspire those who are listening to,
Mhm.
even if, just to inspire them to think about this, because in my belief, we don't know what we don't know. So creating the awareness for in us, oh, I never thought about that. It starts
Mm.
like that I don't know, I never thought about it, I never knew that existed. Just like when I met you, I didn't know that you are doing this work. So it's fascinating. Now I'm aware, and now hopefully others are going to be aware too.
Yeah. And the funny thing that just popped into my head when you said you don't know what you don't know. Another thing which we also use, you can't be what you can't see. And the thing is that as a result of our natural way of developing ourselves, we develop ourselves consciously, but because of the stress system, there's also an unconscious alter ego. And your unconscious alter ego often determines how you react to certain situations. And during the training which we developed, we show your unconscious you. And that opens a new world for yourself to learn and unlearn.
Yes. So tell us a little bit, yes, about it. I know we're getting close to the end. Just tell us a little bit if someone's interested in seeing their unconscious self and in their conscious self. Um, how would they do that?
Yeah, well, the thing is that we are a bit old-fashioned in the sense that everything we do is offline, so one-on-one. So what we're doing here, you in Canada, me in Holland, is impossible. So we have a coaching centers in the Netherlands, and there people come for a training for a couple of days. And what they do is watch a movie, but while they watch a movie, we continuously measure brain activity. And the moment something in the movie triggers your stress system in your brain, which means that your view narrows, you get a narrowed view.
Yes, literally, yes.
We measure that, and because we measure it, we can show it, and we show it literally by narrowing your view. Because at that moment in time, a frame arises in the mirror in the monitor where you watch a movie, and it covers the outer part of the movie. So basically, part of the movie is covered behind a frame.
Yeah, it goes.
And then in about 15% of the cases, you know what's the reason, because the scene in the movie is something you know is challenging for you in your everyday life. So you recognize it basically as something which you find hard in your everyday life. So then you're aware, and it's funny that we can show it with this frame by measuring your brain activity.
Yes.
But in 85% of the cases, you don't have a clue. You don't have a clue why this frame pops up, but something has been triggered in your brain which sets your stress system off. And whether you're aware of the reason why it happens or not, for the rest of the process doesn't really matter, because the moment your stress system is fired on, is set on, you lose control. And your stress system takes over and puts you in a reactive stress mode.
Yes.
Yeah, and because we measure that, we can show it, and we show it by making the screen bigger and bigger all the time. And then, of course, you realize that you're stuck in your old behavior. You're stuck in the behavior which is not effective. And then, of course, you want to change that. And we invite people to make sure that they start to focus their attention, particularly on the part of the movie they can see between the screen, and for the rest, just let go. And we give them some insights and tools where it's always possible to do that in that circumstance at that moment in time. And when you do that, then something, well, I'm not sure whether it's spectacular, but at least it's very important happens, because the moment you start looking in an observing manner, you basically create a space between what's happening in the movie or what's happening in your life, because the movie is just a mirror showing how you respond to what's happening in your life.
Yes.
What it does into your brain, it hits a trigger which narrows your mind, and the way you respond to it as a conscious human being, because you don't respond, you just let it happen.
Yes.
And this space basically opens up the ingrained neural pathway, and it gives you the chance to investigate another and a better way to respond to that situation. So that's step one. Step two is that your brain thinks, Andrea, it's time to act. This is dangerous. You need to do something, because otherwise things will go out of control.
Yes.
So your brain increases the pressure, because we measure, we can show, and the screen becomes even bigger. You see it happening and let it happening, because that's the game you're playing at that moment in time. And then something important happens again, because your brain discovers that it's becoming harder and harder for you to watch the movie. And because the brain always is looking for ways to make things easy for you, it starts to investigate what it can do to make it easier for you to watch the movie. And that means that the natural learning capability of your brain fires on basically.
Turns on.
Yeah, and it means that in all parts of your brain, brain activity starts to change. It becomes a bit more, a bit less. And at a certain moment in time where we measure stress, it goes down to more relaxation. And because we measure that, we can show it. And we do that because we open up the screen a bit. So it's a positive feedback.
Yeah.
Personally, you think, what's happening? And your brain thinks, this is how it becomes easier for Andrea to watch the movie.
Yes. So
and
the brain
because it
says,
wants to
continue do that, continue the
exactly
easy.
yeah
Yes.
yeah and so basically your brain starts to do more, and at the end of the day it means that we are able to make it possible for you to use the natural learning capability of your brain in a very focused manner, which makes it possible for you to get a lot more learning experience in the training. And as a result, you create new neural pathways in the training itself. And it means that when you leave, your view to the world has changed.
I I'm fascinated because maybe like others, I read about the neuroplasticity of the mind and of our cells, and now hearing the process, it's fascinating that like this is how it works. This is
Yeah.
actually how the process works and how the brain works. And then you are able to expand that, to work with the brain to get better. I mean, it's fascinating. Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for sharing.
My pleasure, Andrea.
Um,
Yeah, maybe, and what it helps people, because it's, of course, you maybe have it as experience yourself, it's quite challenging to learn new behavior, but doing in this way helps you to get out of your comfort zone comfortably. That's basically what it does, because you are really getting into new territory, which you normally find daunting, and now it's turned into a play basically. So it's fun to do.
Interesting. That was my thought too, that
Yeah,
this sounds like fun, like a
it
play.
is fun. Yeah.
To learn this way and to experience, learning and growing, and then to experience my brain this way. It's like I've never done this before. So I admit for the audience, I haven't been and experienced what Marco is talking about. um but I'm fascinated, and I wanted to invite you here today to share with us, to share with me, to share with everyone who's listening, because yeah, I believe in your mission, and I believe in this work, and I believe in our brain being able to get better in serving us uh, to our best
Mm.
capabilities once we want that. So, it starts with the person in the mirror, just like your story that you shared with us. You experienced the challenge first in your life that then led you to these steps to discover what you shared with us.
Mm.
And I believe that we all have these challenges in our lives. We all have our own fair share of struggles,
Mm.
and I wanted to bring in the abundance mindset, that there is an answer, a solution, a way out there. If someone's looking for one, then contact you, Marco. So as we're closing, if someone is interested, how can they contact you? What's the best way?
Well, probably the easiest way is to go to the website. It's bemoreyou.nl, and then there you'll find a button to schedule a call with me, and then we can talk what your challenges are, what you'd like to achieve, and then I can tell you more in detail how we could possibly help you.
Great.
if
Well,
someone's interested.
great. We'll add the website to the notes, the show notes, so
Great.
people will have it. Well,
Yeah.
Margot, I want to give the mic back to you. Close us out. What would you like to leave us with today?
Well, I think probably what I'd like to leave everybody with is what you also mentioned and we talked about earlier, is that it's so important to really remain open to discover or rediscover what's your purpose in this world, and be open to investigate new roads which you had never logically thought of, but which could be the most rewarding gift you can give to yourself and to the world. Because also when I look at the people who come to us, so many people are just stuck in things they feel they need to do, and by doing so they limit their own happiness and also contribution. So, and of course also like an engineer, including myself, we all think that everything is rational, and rationality is an important way of looking at things, but it's not the only way.
Not
So
the only way.
please try to make sure that and enable yourself to use your emotional way of thinking, also your intuitive way of thinking, particularly for, well, I think quite a lot of the engineers among us.
Yes, thank you for that message. And on that note, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for sharing your journey and your challenges and then your solution with us. I really appreciated this time together, Marco. Really, thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.